The documentary film, Saving Mas Ainak, tells the story about the efforts to preserve and protect one of the world's most renowned and endangered sites. The feature-length film about Saving Mas Ainak was presented at the 2024 Archaeos Film Festival, along with 2 related short films. Here I am happy to share a look behind the scenes with the filmmaker and professor, Brent Huffman.
So Mas Ainak is essentially an ancient Buddhist city in Afghanistan. There's sort of older material that is located beneath the Buddhist city, but I think for the point of today, we'll talk about the Buddhist remains. So there's essentially a 5,000 square meter ancient city that's full of hundreds of life-size Buddhist statues, some of the oldest Buddhist writing ever discovered, some of the oldest oil paintings. There are human remains, jewelry, pottery, this sort of enormous site. Lots has changed since I made the film, but when I made the film, it was located in a sort of Taliban-controlled area. A Chinese government-owned mining company bought the site for $3 billion. There is a enormous deposit of copper directly beneath this ancient Buddhist city that's supposedly worth $100 billion or more. Essentially, what's happening is the Chinese company would set up in Taliban country and mine, for this copper, and in doing so, destroyed this enormous, sprawling ancient Buddhist city. I think Saving Mas Ainak is a visual record of this ancient city before it's set to be destroyed, and the film also documents the sort of heroic work of Afghan archaeologists to try to save this city, before it's destroyed. In some ways, it was nothing but challenges. Everything was a challenge, from accessing the site. It was in this Taliban-controlled area. Now the Taliban control all of Afghanistan, but it was in this hostile area where to drive in, the road was full of landmines, and it was really precarious to get there. And then there was just, the access to subjects. It's a politically charged story. Very few people wanted to talk about it on camera, like actually do a recorded interview. So, in the documentary, you hear from the Chinese company, you hear from politicians, you hear from the Afghan archaeologists, but every interview was really difficult, except for the Afghan archaeologists. They were the ones that wanted to tell the story, wanted to show me things. Everything else was difficult. I'm a crew of 1, so I'm, directing, producing, shooting, recording sound. So lots of difficulty. There are obviously funding difficulties. Really, in a sense, all these difficulties. Why did the film happen? I think it's because it's a real passion project for me, and I was really inspired by the passion of the Afghan archaeologists to, like I said, essentially risk their lives to save their own heritage. What makes the film special is the human element, that it's in many ways, so I don't appear in the film, I'm not like on camera. I tried to make it as much as I could the Afghan archaeologist story. So Kadir Tamore, who is the central sort of main character, Afghan archaeologist, in many ways it's really his story, and it's through his words that we learn why the site is important. And this is actually a rare thing in the way archaeology is covered sometimes, is that, usually there's sort of a foreign, white Westerner, male that's kind of the main subject that's, introducing the place, right? They're not from the area, but for Saving Mas Ainak, it's really, here's an indigenous person who loves, who grew up here, who knows who knows the culture, who really understands what's at stake, Blowing up Mas Ainak for copper mining means erasing his personal history, and history has enormous power. You could argue, what do people have if they don't have a history? They don't have the story of who they are. And that's what he's fighting to save. I've been working for a long time on a film that's very similar to Saving Mas Ainak in many ways, looking at Yemeni people in Yemen in different cities save heritage. And one thing I felt really bad about in Saving Mas Ainak is it's a very male-centered film. The archaeologists were men, Culturally, it's difficult for me to interview women in Afghanistan. It's sort of not a thing, but I felt bad about it. So in this Yemen film, many of the main subjects are women working in rescue archaeology and heritage protection. In a similar vein, Saving May Synak trying to save heritage, during an act of war in the country. So there were 2 shorts in the film festival. I'm working on this feature-length version of the film. I really want to, again, sort of break stereotypes and show these countries like Afghanistan and Yemen have this incredible heritage that people don't associate with the location. So one is sort of educating about that. This also breaks stereotypes in Afghanistan, Yemen, these other countries, that local people, care about their culture and are in many ways, like I said, risking their lives to try to save it. Saving May Synak in this new film, if the audience wants to get involved and actually help to save these places, they can, which I think would be an incredible thing.
You can learn more about the documentary film Saving May Synak and other works by filmmaker and Professor Brent Huffman through the web links in this video description. Thank you for watching. I will see you in the next video.